Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something that feels a bit backwards. The idea that the smaller the change you make, the bigger the result can be.
It really is. We're diving into a framework that flips the script on self-improvement. It's not about massive heroic efforts.
No, it's about the surprising power of, these tiny consistent behaviors.
And it all comes from this philosophy that focuses on micro-leverage, finding those irreducible units of change and just letting time do all the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, so let's start with the origin story because it's really compelling and I think it makes the whole system feel so much more human. The author didn't just dream this up. It was born out of a pretty serious crisis.
Yeah, a really violent interruption to his life. He was a high school athlete, sophomore year, and during baseball practice, a bat slipped out of a teammate's hands.
Oh, wow.
And it hit him right in the face.
Yeah.
The result was, it was devastating. A broken nose, multiple skull fractures. He was in a coma for a short time.
That's the kind of thing that changes your whole life, physically and mentally.
Mm.
I can't imagine coming back to a sport after that. It couldn't have been easy.
It was a huge uphill battle. After months and months of rehab, he finally gets back to baseball, and he's the only junior cut from the varsity team.
So we had to start all over again.
He had to start over on junior varsity. This is not one of those, I woke up and everything was fine stories. It was this grueling, frustrating comeback that was built one tiny decision at a time.
And the proof is right there in what happened later. He ends up becoming the top male athlete at his university, makes the ESPN Academic All-America team.
Right. His success was literally built on that foundation, those small, consistent habits he had to learn just to recover.
And that really sets the stage for the core idea we're exploring. The name itself is key. We're talking about atomic habits.
Exactly. And when we say atomic, we mean it in the literal sense, an extremely small amount, the single irreducible unit of a larger system.
So our mission today is to unpack the science behind this and the practical toolkit for how you can use these micro improvements to get, massive results.
Let's start with the math, because this is where it stops feeling like a nice idea and starts feeling like, an undeniable law of nature.
Right, and you can't talk about this without mentioning the classic example. Dave Brailsford and the British cycling team. For about a century they were. Well, they were a joke.
They were. Before Brailsford, they'd won a single Olympic gold medal since 1908. Never won the Tour de France.
I read that one bike manufacturer actually refused to sell them equipment. They were worried it would hurt their brand.
That's how bad it was. So Brailsford comes in, and his entire strategy is this idea he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Which is just this relentless search for a tiny 1% improvement in everything.
In everything. Not just the obvious stuff like bike aerodynamics. They optimized the massage gels the riders used, the pillows they slept on. They even tested the type of alcohol used to clean the garage floor to reduce dust.
It's amazing. You'd think a 1% improvement here and there adds up, but it's not addition. It's multiplication.
It's the compounding effect. That's the secret. If you get 1% better each day for a year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up 37 times better.
37 times.
But the flip side is true, too. If you get 1% worse each day, you decline almost all the way down to zero. That tiny, seemingly meaningless choice gets multiplied over and over.
And that really shows why your trajectory, the direction you're heading, is so much more important than where you are right now.
Precisely. Your outcomes today are just a lagging measure of your habits. Your weight is the lagging measure of your eating habits from the last few years.
Your bank account is the lagging measure of your spending habits.
Exactly. So if you're in good shape right now, but your daily habits are slipping by just 1%, you skip the gym, you order takeout, your current results look fine, but your trajectory is terrible.
So those small daily choices, they always compound. Maybe not tomorrow, but 10 or 20 years from now.
Okay, so if that's true, if these small gains compound so powerfully, why do we all give up? You start a new routine, you go to the gym for 2 weeks, and you feel like nothing is happening, so you quit.
Right. It's because progress just doesn't feel linear. And that feeling traps us in something called the valley of disappointment.
This is where that great ice cube analogy comes in.
Yeah, I love this one.
Imagine you have an ice cube in a room that's 25 degrees. You slowly raise the temperature, 29 degrees, 30, 31. You're putting in all this work, but you look at the ice cube, and what do you see?
Nothing. It's still a block of ice.
It's still a block of ice. All that work is being stored, but the external result is zero. Then suddenly at 32 degrees, it melts.
And the breakthrough looks like it happened all at once.
But it was earned by all that invisible work you did from 25 to 31 degrees. The frustration is that we expect a linear result. We put in an hour of work, we want to see an hour of progress, but systems don't work like that.
So when people complain that they've been trying for weeks and have nothing to show for it, it's like complaining the ice cube hasn't melted at 31 degrees.
Your work was deposited, the interest just hasn't paid out yet. And then, of course, when someone finally hits that 32-degree mark, what does everyone else call it?
An overnight success.
An overnight success.
Yeah.
They completely ignore all that invisible stored work.
So the real task is just sticking with it long enough to hit that melting point. Which leads to this next big idea, this distinction between systems and goals.
Right. This whole philosophy really challenges the idea that you need these big, specific goals.
Okay, I have to push back on that a little bit. I mean, don't you need a goal to even know what direction you're headed? How do you build a system if you don't have an outcome in mind?
That's a great question. And goals are fine for setting a direction, but systems are what actually make the progress. A goal is the result you want, win a championship. The system is the process that leads to it, how you recruit, how you practice, how you train.
And the problem is, when we make the goal the only thing we focus on.
Right. There are two big problems with that. First, achieving a goal is just a momentary change. You clean your messy room, great. Goal achieved.
But if your sloppy habits that made the room messy in the first place are still there, it's just going to be messy again next week.
You fixed the output, but you didn't fix the input. You have to fix the system.
And what's the second problem?
A goals-first approach restricts happiness. You're basically always postponing your satisfaction until you hit the next milestone. I'll be happy when I get that promotion.
I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds.
A systems-first mentality lets you find satisfaction anytime the process is running. You fall in love with the process itself, not just the destination.
So we're focusing on the process, the system over the outcome or the goal. But there's a third layer here, a deeper one, identity.
And that's where the real power is. Change happens on 3 levels: your outcome, your process, and your identity, which is just what you believe about yourself. And true, lasting behavior change is identity change.
I love this idea that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become.
It's incredibly powerful. You're not just trying to run a marathon, you're casting a vote to become a runner. You're not just writing 500 words, you're casting votes to become a writer.
And the more pride you have in that identity, like I am a disciplined person, the more motivated you are to keep up the habits that go along with it.
Okay, so that brings us to the practical tools, the 4 laws of behavior change. And they're all about hacking this neurological loop that runs in our brain.
The first law is make it obvious. But first, we need to understand that loop.
It's a 4-step feedback loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. And this loop is so important because our conscious mind, well, it's a bottleneck. It can't handle that much at once. So habits are the brain's way of offloading work.
Right, they reduce the cognitive load. But the danger is that a habit can start without you even being aware of the cue that triggered it.
Exactly. So the first law, make it obvious, is all about bringing those non-conscious routines into the light. Look at the Japanese railway system. They use something called pointing and calling.
What's that?
The train conductors will literally point at a signal and call out the status, or point at the speedometer and call out the speed. They're making a non-conscious habit just glancing at a dial into a fully conscious action. It reduces errors dramatically.
And we can do that for ourselves with what are called implementation intentions.
It's a simple formula. I will do behavior at time and location. By making the cue that specific, the urge to act becomes almost automatic.
Or you can use habit stacking, where you pair a new habit with one you already have.
Yeah, the formula is after my current habit, I will do my new habit. So, for example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. You're anchoring the new habit to something that's already wired in.
This all ties into designing your environment, because vision is our most powerful sense. The cues have to be visible.
Absolutely. You have to prime your environment to make the right cues unavoidable. You want to play guitar more. Don't leave it in the closet. Put the stand right in the middle of your living room.
The classic example is the Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam.
Right. They etched a tiny sticker of a fly into the men's urinals. And what did men do?
They aimed for it.
They aimed for it naturally. It improved cleanliness and cut cleaning costs by 8%. They just made the right action obvious.
Okay, so law 2 is make it attractive. This is about tapping into the desire part of that loop, the craving. And it's all about dopamine.
It is, but the science is a little counterintuitive. Dopamine isn't just released when you get a reward, it's released when you anticipate it.
The wanting is more powerful than the liking.
Your brain has far more circuitry dedicated to wanting rewards than it does to actually liking them. That craving, that expectation of pleasure is what drives you to act.
So how do we make a boring habit, like exercise,
Yeah.
more attractive?
One way is temptation bundling. You pair an action you need to do with an action you want to do. There's a great story of an engineering student who hacked his stationary bike,
Oh, the Netflix bike.
the Netflix bike. He rigged it so Netflix would only run if he was pedaling above a certain speed. He bundled the thing he needed to do, exercise with the thing he wanted to do, watch shows.
And of course, we are all wired to imitate others. Social norms are incredibly attractive.
We imitate three groups: the close, like our friends and family; the many, our tribe; and the powerful, people with status. If you join a culture where the normal behavior is the one you want to adopt, it becomes so much easier.
Okay, on to law 3. Make it easy. This one seems pretty straightforward. It's about the law of least effort.
Humans will always gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. It's just how we're built. So the key here is to ruthlessly reduce friction.
Modern businesses are built on this. Ride-sharing removes the friction of hailing a cab. Meal delivery removes the friction of cooking.
And we can apply that to our own lives by priming the environment. It's about preemptively removing that friction. If you want to have a healthy breakfast, lay out the skillet and the ingredients the night before.
If you want to go for a run in the morning, lay out your workout clothes before you go to bed. You're making the next action almost effortless.
The most practical tool here, especially for big, intimidating habits, is the 2-minute rule.
This one is a game changer.
It is. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The point isn't to get the full result right away. The point is to ritualize the beginning of the process.
So run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
Study for 2 hours becomes open my textbook. It's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. Because just showing up, that's the vote that reinforces your new identity.
Okay, finally, law 4. Make it satisfying. And this tackles the biggest problem with good habits. They often feel immediately unenjoyable.
They do. And the cardinal rule of behavior change is this: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. Our brains evolved in an immediate return environment. You hunt, you get food.
But modern life is a delayed return environment. We work for a month to get paid. We save for decades to retire.
Right. And this is why bad habits like scrolling social media or eating junk food, they win so easily. They offer that immediate low-effort dopamine hit. They short-circuit the system.
So we have to find a way to get an immediate reward for our good habits.
We need to bridge that gap. We need some kind of immediate sensory satisfaction. There was a study in Karachi about hand washing. Instead of just teaching people about germs, they introduced a new soap.
And the soap was just better.
It foamed easily and it smelled fantastic. That immediate pleasurable sensory signal made the act of washing your hands satisfying in the moment. And that drove consistency, which led to the health improvements.
So we need a short-term reward that reinforces the long-term identity we want.
Exactly. Let's say you skip buying an expensive coffee. The second you make that choice, you immediately transfer that $5 into a savings account that you've labeled Trip to Europe.
Ah, so you see the number go up right away. The reward is immediate.
And it casts a vote for the person you want to become. Someone who is financially responsible, not against it.
Habit tracking is another perfect way to do this. Ticking a box on a calendar is surprisingly satisfying.
It is. It's visual proof that you cast your vote for the day. But what happens if you miss a day? The rule is simple: never miss twice.
Missing once is an accident.
Missing twice is the start of a new bad habit. Rebounding quickly is everything.
And for those really high-stakes habits, you can use accountability, creating a social cost for failure.
Social costs are incredibly powerful motivators. There's a story about a guy, Brian Harris, who made a public contract. If he failed to log his food for the day, he had to pay his trainer $200. And he had to dress in a full suit every workday and every Sunday for the rest of the quarter. The immediate pain and humiliation of that was a massive barrier to inaction.
So to pull it all together, we make habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. But once they're formed, how do we keep going? What separates the amateur from the master?
That brings us to what's called the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when a task is not too easy and not too hard, but right on the edge of their current
It
abilities.
has to be just right.
Just right. You need to keep things interesting. Like the comedian Steve Martin. He never did the exact same routine twice. He kept his guaranteed jokes, but he was always adding a little new material.
You kept enough victory to stay motivated, but enough challenge to avoid getting bored.
And that's the key. The greatest threat to your long-term success isn't failure. The greatest threat is boredom. Amateurs stop when it isn't fun anymore. Professionals stick to the schedule even when the mood isn't right.
You have to fall in love with the boredom of training every day.
That's the ultimate test of your identity.
So let's zoom all the way back out. That very first step, just identifying the right habits to build in the first place. If you realize your current path just isn't working for your natural strengths, what's the final piece of advice?
You have to focus on what you can control. Your genes, your personality, they don't determine your destiny, but they do determine your areas of opportunity. If you're struggling in a game that doesn't favor your natural talents, the answer isn't to just quit working hard. The answer is to create a new game.
A game that favors your strengths.
Exactly. Find a way to combine your unique skills, even if they seem completely unrelated, to create a niche where working hard actually feels easy to you. That is how you maximize your own potential, instead of just endlessly comparing yourself to people who are built for a different game entirely.